Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our talk about our approach to a lightweight purpose justification service for embedded accountability. My name is Yongwei Wee, and I am an engineer from the Privacy and Civil Liberties team at Palantir.
And my name is Arnav Jageja, and I'm also an engineer on the Privacy and Civil Liberties team at Palantir.
First, perhaps a quick introduction to Palantir. Palantir is a software company that builds software for data-driven operations and decision-making. Our platforms power government and commercial clients in dozens of industries all over the world. And we also donate our software and services to select nonprofits dedicated to improving human lives. In all of these cases, our platforms allow organizations to better manage the data that they already lawfully control. Within Palantir, Arnav and I are from the Privacy and Civil Liberties team. Our team mission is to design, build, and deploy privacy protective technologies and to foster a culture of responsibility around their development and use. Both of us are engineers, but we are a multidisciplinary team also consisting of data scientists, lawyers, policy analysts, and philosophers. This is to allow us to examine privacy and data protection from a multitude of perspectives. And we work together with internal stakeholders as well as customers to navigate the challenges in this space. Today, we will be discussing one of our technical projects on how we have approached the implementation of an accountability feature in our platforms to deal with purpose limitation in practice. First, let us discuss the data protection principle we are addressing today, purpose limitation. The principle of purpose limitation requires that data must be collected for specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes only, and that data must not be further processed in a way that is incompatible with those purposes. This is an incredibly important safeguard in data protection regulation. But ensuring the adherence and accountability of purpose limitation policies remain one of the more difficult data protection principles to uphold in modern big data platforms. Let us walk through some of the limitations we've observed in the current approaches of why governance of data platforms can be difficult. Modern data platforms are usually designed to be flexible and agnostic to the user-specific workflows, and meant to support a wide variety of use cases. Commonplace processes to ensure purpose limitation, such as legal reviews or privacy impact assessments, tend to be one-off exercises done at the beginning of the scoping phase of a project, and they are disconnected from the everyday use of the platform. Access controls that are meant to limit the scope of use are also usually set at a point in time, and don't easily dynamically update as a use case might evolve. Further, efforts to analyze user audit logs after the fact also tend to be expensive processes that not many organizations have the budget nor the expertise to perform. Each of these processes that I've just mentioned are still crucial and very important for governance, but in modern big data platforms, they have their limitations. On the other side, for platform users who manage and interact with sensitive data sources, there often lacks robust tooling to remind them of purpose limitation restrictions in the course of their daily routine, in the course of their work. Interfaces of data platforms do not always bake in these purposes in a way that reminds or nudges users of data protection policies and guidelines. As a result, users may accidentally or unknowingly repurpose data sources outside the remit of the purposes under which they were granted. So what we can observe here is a gap between the governance function as well as a platform user function. This gap makes it difficult to understand if purpose limitation principles are actually upheld in practice on an ongoing basis. Such challenges are amplified in any modern data platform, where it is often hard to scale evaluation processes across a wide variety of users and teams. To deal with this, we will discuss how we have designed a generalizable approach that allows users to justify their actions, and data protection and governance teams to gain a richer situational context in which to evaluate whether users are adhering to data privacy principles. So let us now briefly, at a high level, walk through a sample user experience workflow. Let's first put ourselves in the shoes of the governance user. So assume you are a governance user, and to start configuring, you go to a front end where you can select which sensitive actions to configure a checkpoint, to ask users to specify their purpose for an action, as well as specify language you want users to see before they commit the action. And then, now let's switch views and assume now you're a user of the platform. Based on the configuration from the governance user before, as you're going about your daily routine, and just as you're about to commit the sensitive action that was configured, you get served up a prompt, which we call the checkpoint. In this, you're reminded of the purposes you can use the data for, as well as are reminded that these justifications can be reviewed. You acknowledge a checkbox, you input a response to justify the action, and then you move on with your action. This might not be a gating function, but the important thing is that if we swap back to the governance user, you can now do an ongoing real-time review of not just what users are doing, but why they are doing it, as well as verify the context under which they did those actions within the same platform. Such a setup embeds governance users into the platform and allows for a mutually reinforcing relationship between these groups. This proactive and iterative setup allows governance users to continually improve upon their accountability practices through ongoing contextual feedback, and for system users or platform users to understand the environment in which they are performing their actions. I'll now hand it over to Arnav, who will now cover the technicals of the framework and how developers can think about making this possible.
In this section, we will outline some critical technical features of this purpose justification framework. Let's start by discussing the environment in which this framework can be used. Many of Palantir's products are built using a microservice architecture design. The data platform consists of many standalone but interoperable backend services that are displayed to the user in a unified platform for a cohesive user experience. Enforcing the purpose limitation principle in a platform backed by microservices, however, can be quite challenging. Consider a series of microservices, each of which exposes its own API. A governance user might deem a few of the endpoints in each service as sensitive and want the user to submit a justification before proceeding with that action. In our example, the bold red arrows are the sensitive API endpoints that require a justification. Governance users should be able to determine which actions or API endpoints are sensitive based on organizational or regulatory needs, and configure how the user submits a justification for each of these actions in a centralized manner. Moreover, each service should report details in a common format about the sensitive action the user is taking. We built our purpose justification framework to address these challenges. Our proposed solution is a lightweight service to configure justification checkpoints, store user justifications, and present these contextual justifications for review. Let's dive into the details of this technical framework to showcase the benefits for both governance users and developers of microservices in the platform. Our purpose justification framework has a few key goals. 1. Governance users can configure justification checkpoints for actions that they deem sensitive. 2. When a user performs a sensitive action, the user sees the configure checkpoint and language specific to the action, and then submits a user justification. And 3, governance users can review the sensitive actions users have taken, along with the justification and context around the sensitive actions. We designed a lightweight purpose justification service with a few simple API endpoints to meet these goals. Create configuration, which creates a configuration for a justification checkpoint with language specific to a particular sensitive action. Get configuration, which gets the configuration for a justification checkpoint associated with a sensitive action. Put justification, which stores a user's justification for the sensitive action the user is taking. And get justifications, which gets the justifications that users have submitted for governance users to review. We deploy this purpose justification service alongside the other microservices in the platform, and the service supports 2 workflows for governance users: configuring new justification checkpoints and reviewing user-submitted justifications and the context for sensitive actions. First, it supports a user interface where governance users can create new configurations for justification checkpoints. There is no one-size-fits-all solution for purpose justification, and governance users need centralized control over many aspects of a purpose justification framework. In this UI, governance users can specify both what actions in the platform they consider sensitive and thus would require a user-submitted justification before taking that action, as well as how they want users to provide their justifications. This could be confirming data governance policies, providing a written justification, selecting an approved workstream, and so on. This user interface also allows users to review the configurations for purpose justifications across the platform in a single pane of glass. Second, it allows governance users to review the justifications and context for sensitive actions that users have taken across the platform. Governance users can review justifications for all sensitive actions together, with options for filtering, drilling down, and analyzing such information to ensure that data governance principles are upheld. In order to show purpose justifications for a variety of different sensitive actions together in the review user interface, we designed an object model for a sensitive action. Data protection and governance users may not always be technical, so the purpose justification framework must clearly and legibly explain what action the platform user took and how the user has justified her action. Our object model serves as a simple abstraction over a sensitive action, which allows data protection and compliance users to evaluate how the totality of sensitive data is being handled and then make the best decisions about data protection in the platform. We propose an object model for such a sensitive action that has a few key parts. First, the action type, which is an intuitive name for the action that was performed. Second, the acting user, which is the platform user that performed the sensitive action. Third, any related items that are associated with the sensitive action. This could be the dataset that was exported, files a user imported, and so on. Fourth, the prompt, which is the prompt a user was presented with when the user was asked for a justification. And fifth is the user justification itself. This could be free text or a checkbox that the user acknowledges, among other justification types. This is a relatively simple, lightweight abstraction of a purpose justification. Importantly, it captures not only the user's justification, but also the context around the sensitive action. For example, when a user uploads sensitive data to the platform, you can see what data was uploaded, where it was uploaded, what prompt the user was shown, and how the user justified her upload. In addition to serving as a lightweight and intuitive service for governance users, we want to ensure that integrating with the service is also a low-lift and seamless process for other platform developers. Consider the perspective of a developer of one of the other microservices in the platform ecosystem. Developers might continually offer new types of actions and update their microservices APIs. Integrating with the purpose justification framework should not slow down product velocity and development, and instead should account for each microservice updating the technical implementation of actions that might be sensitive. As such, the purpose justification service needs to be agnostic to the technical implementation of each sensitive action in each microservice. To do so, we use a shared front-end library across all microservices to display a standardized justification checkpoint based on the governance user's configuration from the configuration front-end. This calls the getConfiguration API endpoint that retrieves the configure justification checkpoint prompt for the sensitive action the user is about to take based on the governance user's configuration. When the user submits a justification to this prompt, we hit our putJustification API endpoint to save the justification as well as the context surrounding the sensitive action based on the object model we outlined previously. Then, the user can proceed to taking the sensitive action with the microservice as normal, and after the sensitive action was taken, the microservice can optionally validate with the purpose justification service that a justification was indeed provided for the action. In this architecture, we offer a standardized approach for prompting users for justifications without hindering the development of each microservice. By using the standardized library to retrieve justification checkpoint prompts from the purpose justification service and then store back the user's justification, a developer of a microservice can easily add purpose justification to any endpoint in their API. This allows governance users to get a rich contextual understanding of any action in the data platform that they deem sensitive. By centralizing user justifications and context for sensitive actions across every microservice into one store, we need to be mindful about how governance users get access to these contextual user justifications. And there are a few ways in which access controls can help solve some of these security challenges. Justifications are available in a specific user interface for only select data governance users to review, as specified by their organizational policies. We enforce an access control scheme for access to the review and configuration front ends for the purpose justification service. This restricts access to the record of user justifications and context around sensitive actions to only those users who are reviewing such information for governance and oversight. In order for governance users and oversight users to do their jobs, they might need all-encompassing knowledge of what's happening on the platform for granular investigations. One key question when using this purpose justification framework is how much access to provide to a data governance user to activity in the platform. We have found that this answer varies across organizations and industries, but access controls can help express granular and configurable security policies. In the review front end shown on the left, we apply access controls to each element of the object model, and a data governance user can only view that element of the justification object if they can access the underlying data natively in the platform. For example, if a governance user cannot view information about a certain class of data in the platform, that data will be redacted in the review front end. This helps us both balance governance and security. Governance users get real-time access to purpose justifications, but the framework still respects security and access boundaries that the organization may have intentionally established. Lastly, providing data protection and governance users with a richer understanding of user actions in aggregate can also pose new challenges to employee and workplace privacy. To mitigate these risks, it's important that governance users with the appropriate purview have access to this contextual purpose justification data. Furthermore, data minimization and granular access control techniques can help reduce the risk of governance users inadvertently reviewing justifications for sensitive actions that they are not permitted to observe. Before I hand it back over to Yang, I wanted to go over some concrete technical takeaways from this presentation so far. The APIs, object model, and architecture that we presented can serve as a starter kit for implementing your own purpose justification framework. The simple API endpoints and object model highlight the importance of developing intuitive and legible governance workflows, and the architecture we described helps engineers and product teams implement this purpose justification framework to scale across a variety of potentially heterogeneous microservices. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Yang for some final observations.
As we wrap up, let's cover some of the outcomes we've observed, as well as the feedback we've received from such a setup. For governance users, they found that they get greater awareness and context of user activity. Through this, they've been able to flag existing gaps in accountability procedures and, importantly, improve their processes and training over time. This can directly help data protection and governance users audit and uphold purpose limitation policies. For platform users, they're able to get timely reminders and nudges of the sensitive actions that they are taking, as well as have at their fingertips the relevant organizational policies as they're about to commit an action. In some instances as well, there is language on escalation paths for users in case that they're unsure whether the action they're committing adheres to organizational policy. And these allow users to more directly engage data protection and governance policies and be accountable for their own actions. Last but not least, we cannot discount the importance of the developer experience in setting this up. A lightweight approach that allows for ease of integration, low code complexity, and low maintenance burden makes it simple to bake in these checkpoints at relevant parts of the user workflow. This makes it easier to scale out such a system across complex data platforms. Of course, it cannot be understated the huge benefits and synergies of being able to bring all these users onto the same page, engaging in the same governance workflows, and to give them a similar language in an embedded framework that interoperates and scales. Thank you all so much for tuning into our talk on how we've implemented a lightweight purpose justification service for embedded accountability. This lightweight approach is part of its value. Digital environments today are heterogeneous and fast evolving, and as such, they demand more flexible and scalable solutions and approaches. These technical solutions and approaches are not replacements, but supplements to existing procedures which remain crucial cornerstones when assessing whether data is being used for legitimate purposes. Ultimately, there's a greater need in the field for technical tools and approaches that are embedded in data systems that can scale and keep up with the pace of technological innovation. We hope our talk today has given you some ideas of how to approach this in practice. Thank you.